Generations Bank has been serving the financial needs of the Finger Lakes region since 1870. Generations combines the best of modern banking with dedication to the local community. Visit them at mygenbank.com. Generations Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
All right, everybody, welcome into Bills Weekly here on FingerLakes1.com. Paul Russo and Kyle Evans here today with you. Bills victory. It's Victory Monday. We'll jump into some stuff with that, but 30-20, the Bills come out victorious over the Indianapolis Colts yesterday in Week 10. So crazy to say out loud, but a win is a win. I don't like continually saying that, Kyle, admittedly. And we'll get into all of that. But the Bills continuing what they need to do, 8-2 now on the year, still trail, admittedly, in the standings, Kansas City by a little bit more than anticipated, maybe watching the games yesterday. But at the end of the day, Bills maintain what they got going, continuing the momentum into what's going to be a very big Week 11, as we know, against Kansas City in Orchard Park this coming Sunday. So I guess initially here out of the gate, I know probably in the grand scheme of it, you seem and probably feel a little bit kind of like me, where it's like, all right, the win's the win here. And at the end of the day, that's what's most important when you exit an NFL Sunday.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a great win. The same could be said, even last week. The offense just didn't really look great. I know they were down two of their wide receivers and Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper. But yeah, it just seemed like Josh Allen was a little off too. And then the defense struggled in the first half, but did play much better in the second half. But yeah, overall, there was just things that weren't great that you could definitely say, "Wow, I hope that trend doesn't continue." But to be honest with you, as much as that win didn't feel great, if they get those wide receivers back, I think it helps the passing game tremendously. But yeah, overall, though, 8-2, first time in 31 years. And remember, this is a team before the season that everyone thought would take a quote step back. And I get it. The injuries in the AFC with the Dolphins have changed it a little bit, but 8-2, I don't think anyone could ever thought that.
No, I mean, it's crazy to think because I know at least, at the beginning of the season, I was not on board the Jets. I think we all know that. But, and you mentioned the injuries with the Dolphins. I was pretty high on them. But yeah, I mean, we entered a weird space for the Bills for sure coming into this year. And the fact that, we're through 10 weeks, 8-2, um, and, frankly, for the most part, let's jump into this a little bit right now. Like, I think a lot of the general public views them to be the better of the two between them and the Chiefs right now. I don't think that's totally off base, saying that. It's one of those things where it's kind of crazy to kind of think out loud, just because, like you said, putting it politely, would probably be this team's at a crossroads this season. I thought the crossroads was a little bit more into last season, but all things considered, you mentioned the fact that, Cooper and Coleman were both out this week and everything like that, and they still come away with, at the end of the day, and we'll get more into this obviously in a second, but a more or less in control the whole time victory going into such a big game and everything. It just seems like stuff is stacking the right way for the Bills for the 2024 season as it stands right now.
Yeah, and the score doesn't really represent how that second half went. The Colts scored with 8 seconds left, garbage time. Bills had all their backups in. So really it was 30-13, which would have been a shutout in the second half, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we talk about this every week, except for, maybe 2 weeks or so. The defense, it's just crazy how they can, allow Jonathan Taylor and the Colts to, run all over them in the first half, and then they just make these adjustments at halftime. And they basically lock it down and the offense comes alive. Because the offense, wasn't, like I said, wasn't really great in this game. Josh Allen made some bad mistakes. Receivers weren't playing well for the most part, other than like crazy to say, Khalil Shakir, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you look again and they scored 30 points for a fourth straight game, and they've done that in 7 games this year, which leads the NFL. So as much as you can, I guess, complain about the offense, they're doing things that other NFL teams aren't even doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can look at the Chiefs as being one of them. They're undefeated and they've been far from impressive.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
yeah, either way, I definitely think they have to put them in the conversation with the Chiefs.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy because obviously the game more or less opens for the Bills with a pick six,
Yeah,
and uh, we talk a ton about them on defense still, and justifiably so, right? And I, I kind of made note of it again yesterday, where it's like I really wish they still got one extra, just firepower, more or less, defensive back at the deadline, and they didn't do it. And we kind of talked last week, obviously, that we didn't expect them probably to really do anything. And of course, lo and behold, Taron Johnson pick six, right, to get things going. And I know Taylor Rapp had one, Austin Johnson had, the other. And frankly, we might be talking a little bit of I know what you mean by the score. We might be talking a little bit closer of a game if Joe Flacco just doesn't, frankly, open the game. But I don't just mean the first Colts drive, but like opens the game just looking. I mean, I jokingly said doing his best Kyle McCord impression, you know, at one point there in the first quarter. But that being said, you brought it up, right? I mean, they faced a guy like Jonathan Taylor, who, at worst, when he's healthy, is a top 3 running back, right, in the league. They were able to stifle, all things considered, that pretty good for a while. He did end up with 114 yards at the end of the day, but frankly, for a while, that was the only form of offense the Colts even had going anyway. So it's like, take the good with the bad in a sense. There, the Bills offensively, we talked about. Let's jump in a little bit more here. A lot to be desired for the most part. Finally got things really kind of going as the game progressed on. You know, you mentioned Shakir. We need to give a shout out to Matt Collins yesterday, who did what I call a lot of the things right. And I think the epitome of that was um, going into halftime. Forget what the exact was. That the 44. Yeah, it had to have been the 44, his long of the day, where
yeah,
Josh throws it up and he has to go slide. And then just to have the awareness, right? We see a lot of guys who just do not have the awareness of getting out of bounds, but he pops it up and quickly gets to the sideline. And it's just one of those things where, look, we know what he is not and everything like that. But like it's stuff like that when I talk about like it just feels like the Bills are the best team in the NFL type stuff. It's stuff like that where it just builds and builds and builds. The little things, right? That's where games are won and lost in the fundamentals and the little things. And it's stuff like what Mac had in that play in particular, for example, that really just show why this Bills team, at the end of the day, no matter how ugly or whatever it looks, continues to win.
yeah. And that was a huge 3 points there before the end of the half because the Colts were getting the ball, start the second half. And remember the Bills were up 10-0 in the first half, and then the Colts scored 13 straight to take the lead, and then like I said, the Bills responded late in the half. So yeah, it was just big 3 points. Um, and it didn't look like the drive was going to go well. And then all of a sudden, Josh Allen does what he does, scrambles to his right and finds someone. So yeah, just huge. And shout out, like you said, to Matt Collins. Even his last 2 games, he's caught all 9 targets. He's been much better than he was. I'd have to give him credit for that. And stepping up when guys are out. I mean, that's exactly what great teams do. So it was good to see. And then I know Curtis Samuel didn't do a ton, but I mean, he, in terms of yardage, he had his best games. So I guess shout out to the guys, that normally aren't big factors, helping out and getting this win because, it's not easy to win in the NFL. We see this all the time. And especially on the road. So yeah, it was still I'll still say this. It was still a solid win.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is right. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the Colts are one of those teams where, in we're different podcasts for a different time. Maybe this probably should be a little bit better than they're kind of showing. But at the end of the day, you did see stuff. Yesterday, I think a couple people got reintroduced to a couple people on defense for the Colts that they maybe kind of forgot about, in all honesty, stuff like that. So it was pretty interesting to see there. Yeah, I mean, Samuel tied second for the team in targets yesterday, or was second outright with 8 targets yesterday. Shakir had 9. It wasn't for a lack of avoidance or anything like that. I mean, the one that sticks out to me, and it's unfortunate because it's not like you can control, right? Dalton Kincaid only had 2 catches, but missed a pretty good portion of the game due to injury. And that unfortunately just kind of continues to mount a little bit now here on offense because we've already mentioned Cooper and Coleman. They were both out, and it would really, at this point, it would raise a couple red flags just from the football perspective of it, as I call it, right? If Kincaid were to be out, um, any sort of extended period of time. Now, I don't know if that's the case. I mean, today's not quite a dead period, quote unquote, but typically you don't get injury reports until usually later on in the afternoonish today into tomorrow, right? Like it's gonna be one of those things where you might get some smoke signals if somebody hears something, they'll say something, but um going into such a big game for the Bills, it's hard not to look at maybe a little bit of if they are without Kincaid, without Coleman, without Cooper, like damn, this gets weird and sketchy really quick for them on offense going into this Kansas City game.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. The Chiefs defense is really the reason why they are where they are. It has been, how they won a Super Bowl. So yeah, I would say at least 2 of the guys of those 3 need to be back. I still think the veteran Amari Cooper is very important to have back. I know Coleman has looked better lately and has, been a big contributor. But I think Cooper is huge to get back. And yeah, Kincaid has been very reliable for the most part. His catch rate's very high since entering the league. So yeah, having him back would be big too. But I also thought Dawson Knox made a couple nice plays yesterday. It was nice to finally see. So if Dawson can play like that, that's huge with Dalton out.
Yeah, I was just happy we also got to see the Pride of Bowling Green, Quentin Morris, out there a little bit as well, selfishly. But yeah, I mean, just a quick quote here from Kincaid. He spoke with Elena Getzenberg of ESPN.com yesterday following the game. Thought I could go and just didn't feel good enough to run and be able to go out there and protect myself in regards to his knee. So, um, again, he obviously did attempt. Tells me that he can at least put weight on it at that moment in time now. Um, as I kind of say, adrenaline and whatever else they gave him is a hell of a drug. So who knows? But we'll probably get more on that, obviously, as the day and week goes on involving him. Um, so we got as well a little bit of a overall look at the defense again here for the Bills. Pretty much a lot of not everybody back, but pretty good portion of people back and going for them. Bernard, Von Miller, guys like that were at least on the field, as I call it. It wasn't again. It's kind of crazy because we talk a ton about Bernard and at this point Dorian Williams, but Taylor Rapp again was up there. He obviously did end up with an interception, but third in team in tackles. He did pretty well, I thought. Again, I know it's kind of crazy. One of those things where I talk about like I wanted them to get a little bit more protection back there and a couple, maybe a guy. And yeah, at the end of the day, the guys that got back there kind of stepped up again yesterday and were shutting people like me up for the most part in terms of production and stuff like that. Um, Obviously, it will be interesting going into this Kansas City game. I know we keep kind of pounding that home a little bit, Kyle, but um, it's kind of crazy. I don't know if I necessarily view with the current health of the Chiefs wide receiving core all that much different than say the Indianapolis core of Downs and Pierce. But if they played like they did yesterday, in my mind, I think they can kind of keep the Chiefs in pretty good check in the air At least as long as they keep kind of playing the way that they played yesterday anyway.
Yeah, I think this game is all on the Chiefs defense, honestly. I don't know if you know this, but they haven't allowed more than 25 points in 18 straight
Yeah.
games. So they've, like I said, been just completely locking down teams and just scoring enough um, to win games, as we saw yesterday, which shouldn't have happened. Um, but yeah, I think it's going to come down to can the Bills score enough points because I don't think the Chiefs are just going to put up 30. Um, they haven't really done that. I don't even know if they've done that this year. They've just been winning by, one score games. Actually, they did. I think they beat the Buccaneers. They had over 30.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that was their only 30-point game, and that was 30-24. They got they got a 28, they got a couple 27s and 26s, but yeah, I mean they've only hit that 30 mark once.
yeah, so basically if you look at that, if the Bills can somehow find a way, which is going to be very hard to get to that 30-point mark, you might have yourself in a good spot. Like you just said, they've only done it once, and 7 of their 9 games have been one score games. So that goes to show you right there that every game they're in basically is coming down to the wire. So can you be that team that finally comes out on top, and comes out on the right side where the Bills, haven't really done that a whole lot, especially against the Chiefs. You think back to the playoff game in January, they lost by 3, had chances late, couldn't take advantage. So yeah, I think it's can the Bills offense do enough?
Yeah, it'll be interesting just looking at stuff right now in the game sheet for Sunday. You know, Allen has 73 more yards in the air than Mahomes, but also on 22 less passes, attempts anyway, rather, excuse me. Um, it's crazy to kind of look at, right? I mean, Kareem Hunt has 3 less carries than James Cook, and he hasn't played the whole year, and he has less yardages. Yes, less yardage, less touchdowns than Cook. Kelsey and Shakur are the 2 leading receivers, and Kelsey has 12 more receptions and yet less yardage and the same amount of touchdowns as Shakir and has played in all of the games and Shakir is not, as we know. It's crazy to look at. I think it's one of those for a change offensively. You know, the Bills have the superior edge. And you're right, Kyle. I think it comes down to whether or not, the Bills can get this can really penetrate the Chiefs defense. I because I mean, at this point, I have faith enough in the Bills defense. We ain't got to worry about that in my mind. It's going to be like you're saying, like, can the Bills, frankly, can the Bills take advantage of what the Chiefs are going to give them? And it always comes down to stuff like that. Like we mentioned, the little things and whatever else. But, against a team like the Chiefs, you got to take advantage of when they allow the door to be open, right? And to take an adage from racing, right? Which I haven't done too much this year, but there's an adage where it's like if you give a guy an inch, he'll take you more than a mile, and I think that's what the Bills are gonna have to do against the Chiefs. When they give them those plays on defense, where it's like they leave that door open just a crack, you have to throw the thing open on them. You can't. I mean, look at yesterday with the Chiefs, right? I mean, that was legitimately for 45 minutes Denver's game to lose, and they did, right? Like, look, the Chiefs won. They were the better team at the end of the day with that, but you can't tell me that they outplayed the Broncos for most of that game because that would just be a lie.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think red zone is going to be huge here. Field goals, you can't just keep kicking field goals because in the end, Mahomes will get the ball and he'll find his way. And in fact, the Chiefs, did you know they've also won 9 straight games when trailing by 7 or more points? So they're constantly
Yeah.
coming back and winning. They won 15 overall if you include the playoffs last year. And their last loss was Christmas, when they lost to the Raiders. And then that was a time when everyone thought, wow, this team is going nowhere.
Mhm.
And sure enough, they do. So, yeah, I guess if you want to look at positives, the Bills are 4-0 at home, but then the Chiefs are undefeated on the road. So, um, and then the Bills have actually won 3 straight regular season games against the Chiefs. So they've had regular season success against, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, but they don't do it in the playoffs. So maybe this is another case of that where, they take care of business in the regular season. They're finally in Buffalo playing them for the first time other than that playoff game in January since 2020. So things are on their side. They've won, 5 in a row. So it's not like, I guess they're not playing great on offense, but if you get those pieces back, I think there's some positive things to look at in this game for the Bills.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I most definitely. I think, it's kind of funny. I hearken this Chiefs team a lot to, at least for me, and it's not like you didn't see it either, Kyle, but like I hearken this Chiefs team a lot to kind of those Tom Brady Patriots teams, not to conjure up anything rough here, but like from like kind of like the mid-ish 2000s to like the late to the early 2010s where it's like it doesn't make a lot of sense how they're there, but yet they are. And like it speaks to culture and all this stuff like that. Um, for me, I didn't even be told how good of a coach Andy Reid was. I remember him when he was head coach of the Eagles. I'm very much so aware that Andy Reid is one of the greatest coaches of all time. Like it's it's one of those things where um I go back to like what I said. Like this is a team where if they give you an inch, you got to go the mile on them. Like that's just the way it is because even in this current state, like we've been talking about this year with them, like it doesn't make any sense that they're 9-0, but guess what? They are 9-0 for a reason. Like they just know how to get it done when they need to get it done. And for the Bills, and I know they're undefeated in the regular season, but against the Chiefs during this Allen versus Mahomes run and era right now. But this just personally feels like to me the biggest moment within this era now is this Sunday because frankly, if the Bills can't get the Chiefs here, right, they kind of I don't want to say they maroon themselves in the second seed. Like anything's possible. We still have another, after this week, 7 weeks to go. But like, you don't have the tiebreaker anymore on the Chiefs. You don't have home field throughout the whole, more than likely home field throughout the whole playoffs. It's just one of those things where it's like, man, home against the Chiefs in Orchard Park in late January sounds way better than at Arrowhead, and I know it doesn't take a rocket scientist or anything to tell you that, but like it's just one of those things where it's like you already are going to feel like you're behind the eight ball going into a potential matchup like that if you were to lose this game. It's weird saying that, but it's just I think the mentality, at least maybe from more the fans and the players, obviously, but that's the mentality I think that kind of sits in with that outcome if it happens.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. This is basically for the number one seed in week 11, which is crazy to say, but you look at the Chiefs' schedule. They don't really have a tough schedule ahead, other than maybe like the Texans, Steelers. I'm still not high on the Chargers, so I'm not really including them. Um, but yeah, I think this is a huge game. If they don't win the game, you're also looking at the fact that they lost that game and they also lost to the Ravens, two AFC teams that they could potentially meet in the playoffs. And if they can't beat two of the better teams, either behind them or ahead of them, if you want to include them ahead of them, that's something you worry about come January. So it'd be nice to get a win over a team, a quality defense, a quality team like that, with an MVP quarterback who's not playing like one this year, but obviously has the history of being, a great quarterback in this league. So if you can get a win, I mean, it just makes it look even better. 9-2, you just beat the Chiefs, their first loss of the year. Everything it would just feel so much better. And I really see no excuse why they can't. I don't think all three of those guys that we said, that didn't play or got injured in that game yesterday are all going to be out. So you can't use that as an excuse. You got to go find a way to win, just like the Chiefs find a way to win with whatever they have.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting yeah, because for the Chiefs, they get done with Buffalo, it's at Carolina, home against Vegas, home against the Chargers, which um talk to me about them, I think, at the end of next week, is how I feel about them at this point. Um, I think, yeah, they're home against the Bengals next week on Sunday Night Football. So Talk to me more about them then, and I feel like I'll have a better feel on them. At Cleveland at that point for the Chiefs. Depends the weather. Home against Houston, then it's at Pittsburgh and at Denver to wrap the year. So it's a tough final 2 weeks, admittedly, probably for the Chiefs. Um, but you're right. I mean,
Brutal schedule.
outside of the final 2 weeks of the year for the Chiefs, right? Like I don't see where a major trip up lies. And
Hmm.
that's the tough part, like you mentioned, Kyle. It's like they have a fairly, I wouldn't call it easy road by any means, but it's not uber treacherous by any means.
Yeah, it's not what the Bills' schedule is coming out of that bye week. 49ers, Rams, Lions. The Rams and Lions games are both on the road.
Yeah.
So just a little bit different schedules there in terms of, team records, even team record wise.
Yeah.
So I guess the good thing is for the Bills, they get the Patriots twice in the final 3 weeks and the Jets. If those games, mean anything, because they're gonna have let's be real, they're gonna have the AFC locked up by then. This final 3 weeks for sure.
Hmm.
But the question is, will they still be in position for that number one seed? So something to watch. But yeah, huge, huge game this Sunday.
Yeah. And then obviously you go into the bye week, rest up a little bit. Yeah, I'm gonna say my thoughts on San Francisco. I'm gonna need to see them this week again to kind of get a vibe. I was watching a little bit at the same time of them in Tampa Bay yesterday, and I don't know. A lot of interesting stuff going on with the 49ers. I do agree though, the at Rams and at Detroit is I think those might be the two games that I feel most concerned about with the Bills the rest of the way. San Fran's weird. That's one of those talk to me in a week as well about that. But either way. Um yeah, so looking like at the moment, nothing crazy weather-wise, looks clear in Orchard Park Sunday as the far out window, 425. CBS, they're taking their pregame football show on the road on location in Orchard Park for this game. Um, is there in recent memory? I don't think there's ever been a really mid-season matchup quite hyped like this. I could be wrong, but I mean, outside of like the week one stuff, I don't think we've had really anything quite like this in a couple of years, right?
Yeah, I can't remember the records and stuff, but I remember there was a Sunday night game in Kansas City when the Bills won 30 to 24. But I can't remember where the teams were in the standings or exactly which week it is. I think this might be bigger, which is crazy to say because again, before the season, I would have never ever thought this would be the case. But yeah, I heard, like you said, the CBS is going to the parking lot in
Mhm.
Buffalo, and JJ's throwing someone through a table. I can't remember who was that.
I
Boomer?
I thought they said he was going through the table. I'm like, that dude was a like paper mache person throughout his whole career there, especially at the end. Like I don't know if he's the one you want to be sending through a table. I think it'd be visually funny if he sent like Nate Burleson through the table, but like I don't know about freaking poor like Boomer or anybody like that. But
Yeah, they're going to experience that whole
I'd
tailgating
I'd
stuff.
rather I'd rather them go see Pizza Pete or somebody like that than go through a table. But I think that's also just my own personal like I've never still don't understand the whole entire jump through a table thing, but whatever.
Yeah, gotta have a lot of beers in you to do it.
Sheesh, I would need more than a lot of beer, I think. But um all right, early bet line here. Bills by 2.5. It looks like over under of now at 45.5, but it opened last night at 46.5. So that's already moved down a point. Bills also slight favorites on the money line at minus 135. So
And I believe it. Sorry to interrupt. Quick. I
yeah,
believe the spread opened at one immediately after the Chiefs game. I thought
okay.
so. That's crazy that it's already jumped in what? Not even what, 17, 18 hours. It's already
Yeah, I mean
moved.
all the books are different, right? I mean the thing I'm looking at right here on the game sheet is showing that they had it at 2.5 and it stayed at 2.5. And the only movement on their end anyway has been on the total. I wouldn't be surprised though. You look at the percentage marks, ESPN Analytics has the Bills at a 52.7% chance to win. So slightly above average. Again, I think this guy goes into something Jim talks about a lot, right? It's the home field element of it here, where if this was neutral sided, it would probably be a pick game. And then vice versa, if like Kansas City was home, they probably would be favored by the by the 2.5 or the 1.5, depending upon who had it where and when it opened. Um, man, it's tough because I mean we talk on Monday about this, and I really would rather prefer to know what is Kincaid going to play, or do we at least have Cooper or Coleman or one of them back? But I think no matter what, God, I hope I don't jinx them here. I think the Bills step up in this pretty pivotal game for both season and probably career defining, maybe potentially here. I think this is the first time in a couple weeks I think this game goes under the total though. I'm gonna go 23-20. The Bills get it done. I think it's gonna be close. Um, I think, I guess by the sounds of it, and maybe I'm leading towards we might see a Tyler Bass field goal there at the end or something like that.
He's
But
been good.
yeah,
He's
I
been
mean,
really good.
just looking at the numbers and everything, I like the Bills' chances. I think it's going to be close though. I'm going to go 23-20 Bills.
Yeah, well, it's not a bad prediction because I don't know if that was last year or 2 years ago. They had a game in Kansas City that finished 20-17
Right.
Bills. A defensive battle, which again it very well could be. But I wrote this down last night. Again, I think having those receivers is the difference in my prediction. So basically, I'm banking on them to be in there.
Hmm.
I'm at least one of them. So I'm rolling with Bills. They finally break this Chiefs streak and put up 27 to 23. Very tight game, but I think they finally go over that 25-point mark.
Love it. So we're on the same, more or less, page in the grand scheme of it, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, well, one
Um,
quick thing for
yeah.
you. So I researched this last night. Do you know the last time the Chiefs won on the road? Can you give me the team or what month it was? It was obviously last season.
What, one on the road or
Yeah, they haven't
lost?
won on or lost. Sorry,
Okay.
lost. My bad. It's been a
Uh,
long time. It's been over 365
yeah,
days.
that Raider game was in Kansas City, right?
Yep. So before then,
Okay.
you could just say the team maybe. I think it was a Sunday night game. Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure. Because we came in and talked about it.
Cincinnati?
Nope. Green Bay.
Oh, that's right.
Remember that game? Remember how that ended?
Yeah.
Who did he throw to in the end zone? Was that Scantling?
I think it was MVS. No, it was, yeah, that was the MVS game where he dropped it like at
At the 1 yard line or something?
something like that. Yeah, it was that deep ball. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
so it was December 3rd was the last time the Chiefs have lost on the road. It's
Oh,
unbelievable.
that's crazy. My
So, I mean,
gosh.
if you look at all the stats, like, they won 15 in a row, all that stuff, you don't think like they're finally due for a loss. I mean, they can't win forever, they can't go on this crazy 40-game winning streak. It's the NFL. So
Mhm.
hopefully those streaks all get busted this Sunday.
Yeah, it's pretty. What a ride for MVS. My God. And he somehow had 2 touchdowns and 100 yards yesterday for the Saints.
Yeah, I just laughed when I saw that.
Sports, right? I mean, can't script it. All right, so I think that pretty much takes care of it for this week, Kyle. Um, so we'll head out on that note. Uh, Bills and Chiefs on deck. Huge game. We'll be back again next Monday morning. I think everybody will be back in studio at that point. I could be wrong, but I think we'll have everybody packed house. So be good to get everybody in person again for that. Appreciate everybody for listening and watching and tuning in. Can find Bills Weekly and all other fingerlinks1.com podcasts on YouTube, fingerlinks1.com, and all major podcasting platforms. Back at it again next Monday. Let's go, Buffalo.